everyone, Deborah here. Welcome to today's live stream. I am talking about why we never wean doelings or wethers as long as they're on our farm. Basically, people ask when they should wean baby goats. And first of all, let me explain what weaning means, because I think there is some confusion on this. Technically speaking, weaning begins as soon as kids start eating. So if they're dam raised, they're starting to eat whatever mom eats when they're just a few days old. The fact that they're doing that doesn't mean that you can take them away from mom. I've gotten way too many messages and emails from people through the years who bought a 3-week-old kid that was yanked from mom, and the seller said, oh, they're fine, they're eating everything. And like, that is so not true. And the reason they're contacting me is because the kid's half dead, because the kid cannot eat enough to sustain itself. So weaning is a super gradual process that starts, from the time a kid first starts to nibble on food until they very gradually start to eat more, until they are no longer nursing at all. And basically, so you don't want to wean a kid at all. So in terms of Nigerian dwarfs, I don't wean any of my kids until they weigh at least 20 pounds. And that will happen when they are 8 to 10 weeks of age, if they have been getting enough milk from mom. And this is why we don't let does raise more than 3 kids, because we keep track of weight gains. And a kid needs a quart a day. A Nigerian needs a quart a day. So that's why we, it's very hard to find a Nigerian that can make a gallon a day. And that's what they have to be producing in a month to get that 4 ounces a day weight gain, which is what you get when they're getting enough milk. So basically, nobody gets weaned until they weigh 20 pounds at all. And so that means that if kids are being sold, they don't leave the farm until they are at least 2 months old and 20 pounds. They have to hit both of those benchmarks before I let them leave. If we are keeping does, or if there are wethers, if they haven't been sold yet, then we just leave them on mom. And there are multiple benefits to this. Number one is that it means that we don't have to milk that doe twice a day. The other thing that we learned fairly early on is that when you take that kid away from her mom, her milk production is going to go down. In about 4 or 5 days, you're going to start to see a significant reduction. And the reason for that is because when kids nurse, they actually elicit an oxytocin release. And even though that doesn't affect production, the more milk that comes out, the more milk a doe produces, right? So if a kid gets that oxytocin release because a mama loves her baby way more than she loves us, the baby gets that oxytocin release, so the doe is putting out more milk. You hear people talk about the doe is holding back. She's not doing it on purpose. It's because you are not eliciting an oxytocin release that her kids release. And this has been studied with hooking up a doe to an IV to check her blood when the kid's nursing. So it's really cool, because we noticed that years ago. Initially we were like everybody else, like, oh, the kids are 2 or 3 months old, let's wean them so we can have all the milk. And we would take the kid away. Within 4 or 5 days, it's like, why are we doing this? We're getting so much less milk. And so we started putting the kids back with mom, and within a few days, she's right back up to where she was. So we realized it's less work for us. And the difference in the amount of milk we get is not substantial enough for us to have to do that second milking. Like, we would just rather separate the kids overnight after they're 20 pounds, separate them overnight, take all the milk in the morning, and then they spend all day with mom. And they are getting all that milk out from mom, which is encouraging her body to make more milk. And so, we've had does nurse till they were over a year old. We've had wethers nurse till they were over a year old. One of the benefits of having wethers continue to nurse is that if they don't sell as a pet, they're going to be much bigger. They'll be big enough in the fall to butcher and get a decent amount of milk. We can have a 50-pound wether in the fall if he's nursing, which is great. You can get 25, 30 pounds hanging weight if he's 50 pounds live weight. And that's really good because then we don't have to feed him through the winter. So basically, he hasn't really cost us anything, nothing out of our pocket, because he's just been eating what mom gives him and then what he gets from the pasture. So that's another benefit. Another benefit of that is that they are healthier. We don't have kids. We don't treat kids for worms or coccidia. These things that people think are normal are not normal. If your kids are getting enough milk as they're growing, if they're gaining enough in the beginning, they don't wind up with those problems. And then they've got a good, strong immune system. The other thing is, if you want to breed them to kid as a yearling, they are much more likely to hit 2/3 of their adult weight if they still have access to mom. Nothing has the concentrated calcium and protein as mama's milk. And so that's why they're just going to gain weight better if you let them keep nursing. So hopefully this has helped answer some questions about why we never wean the doelings that we are keeping, or the wethers, as long as they're on our farm. Oh, and I know some people say, well, don't you wean them before they get sold? No, they are weaned the second they leave. Like, there's no reason to put a goat through 2 stresses. The more stress a kid goes through, the more likely they are to get sick. And so this was kind of crazy. One of my Goats 365 members said once that she asked about this in a Facebook group or something. And somebody's like, I would be so angry if somebody sold me a kid and I found out it hadn't been weaned. Okay, that's why I said there's confusion about what weaning means, because it sounds like that person thinks that a baby goat doesn't know how to eat. And that's just silly. A baby goat shouldn't, that would mean the kid was 2 weeks old or something. So that just means that this person doesn't actually understand how this works, because the kids are eating, and by the time they are 1/3 of their adult weight, which is what I'm looking at with my Nigerians, I want them to be 20 pounds, and adult weight is 60 to 70. By the time they're that big, they can eat plenty. And so it's just a matter of okay, yesterday they were drinking milk. Today they're not. Today their diet is now entirely forage and a little grain. And that's fine. No one has ever, in 21 years, we've sold, I don't know, we've had 750 kids. So we've probably sold 650. And no one has ever had a problem. The kids transition spectacularly. And most of them do not have problems with worms or coccidia when they go to their new home, even though they're dealing with that stress. Basically, they just have one bad day. They leave the home that they've known their whole life, and they leave their mama that they've known their whole life, and that's it. Rather than putting them through the stress of weaning, taking them away from mom while they're still here, and then taking them to a new place that. You're just prolonging the agony when you do that. So I really don't recommend that. There's zero benefit to that. No one has ever told me that there is a good reason to do that. So hope that answered that question too. So take care. If you've got any questions, ask in the comment section below and I'll get back to you. Bye for now.